into the Horrorcraft podcast.
Hello, horror fans. It's me, Kylee, and this is Horrorcraft Reviews. Cass will be back in a few weeks. Please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. She had surgery Sunday to have her gallbladder removed, but she is doing okay. We love you, Cass. We miss you. Now, we're going to be diving into the highly anticipated season of The Vampire Lestat. The third episode is now here and available on AMC Plus. But spoiler alert ahead, if you want to go ahead and skip this one and go watch it before listening. But we are going to dance on the Devil's Road with our brat prince, the Vampire Lestat. So let's get into it. Episode 3, The Vampire Lestat, titled Toronto. This episode takes us deeper into Lestat's tragic past, revealing the horrors surrounding his transformation into a vampire and the devastating fate of Nicolas, Nicky, and Louis finally confronting a ghost from Claudia's past. But first, let's do a quick recap of episode 2, Toledo, because that was a woof. Louis continued to struggle with the trauma and grief left behind Claudia's death and some other things. During his search for answers and closure, he discovers that Bruce, the vampire who essayed Claudia after she had already become a vampire, was still alive and wandering and doing things, and part of the Fang gang. Fueled by years of anger and guilt, Louis sets out to find him. And meanwhile, Lestat's rise as a rock star continues, and Daniel Malloy becomes increasingly determined to uncover the truth behind Lestat's carefully crafted version of events. Now, let's go ahead and get right into episode 3. It opens with Daniel continuing his interview with Lestat. Daniel wants answers for perhaps the first time. Lestat allows himself to revisit some of the darkest moments of his life. Through flashbacks, we're taken back to 18th century Paris, where Lestat is still human and dreaming of, life beyond the limitations of his family and social class. One of the important people in Lestat's life during this time was Nicolas de la Fente, often called Nicky. Nicky isn't just Lestat's best friend, he's his soulmate, his creative partner, his lover, and one of the only people who truly understood him. The two shared just a deep emotional connection built on love and music and dreams of the theater and escaping the lives that they were born into. And their relationship becomes one of the emotional centers of this episode. We have not really gotten to see that. We see, how much Nicky means to Lestat and how desperately Lestat wants to protect him from the harsh realities of the world. Unfortunately, fate had other plans for Lestat. As Lestat pursues his passions for acting in the theater in Paris, he unknowingly attracts the attention of an ancient vampire named Magnus. Now, Magnus is unlike any vampire we've seen before. He's powerful, isolated, mysterious, deeply disturbed. For some time, he is secretly watching Lestat from the shadows. He becomes fascinated by him and eventually decides that Lestat will become his heir or his next, creation. Now, one night, Magnus kidnaps Lestat and drags him away from everything and everyone he knows. What follows is one of the most disturbing moments of, the series so far. And even in the book, Lestat is taken to Magnus's tower where he is held against his will. Magnus drains his blood and forces him through the transformation into a vampire. And the episode makes it very clear that this is not a gift. It is an act of violence and control. Lestat never chooses to become a vampire or immortality. It is forced upon him. And it's laid out in the book as well. The sequence is terrifying because Lestat has no understanding of what's happening. His entire world is ripped away in a single night. He's literally ripped out of a window in the wall or in the room, like in the book. And then just as suddenly as Magnus enters his life, he leaves it. He throws himself into the fire and takes his life pretty much. And after Lestat, Magnus tells him before he does this, everything he owns now belongs to him. His wealth, his home, his power, his legacy. Left him with tons of money. And then, Magnus walks into a massive fire and destroys himself. And just like that, Lestat is left completely alone. No mentor, no guidance, no family. He wakes up as a vampire with these, extraordinary powers and abilities and this hunger for blood, but has no understanding of how to use them. the abandonment leaves an emotional scar that will shape the rest of Lestat's entire like immortality existence. Now, back in Paris, Nicolas notices something's terribly wrong with Lestat. The man he once knew has changed, and he hasn't really seen him. Lestat tries to maintain some kind of connection with his former life, but keeping his new nature secret is becoming very difficult. So, but as Nicolas begins to suffer emotionally and mentally, Lestat becomes desperate to kind of save him, believing that becoming a vampire and immortality might heal Nicolas's pain. Lestat makes a decision that will kind of haunt him forever. He turns Nicolas into a vampire, and unfortunately, becoming a vampire doesn't save Nicky. It just doesn't. It honestly it destroys him. Nick he struggles to accept what he's become rather than fighting, freedom. He spirals way deeper into despair and just he becomes mad and increasingly unstable, reckless, and obsessed with kind of just exposing truths that vampires have spent centuries hiding or that they're here, and other vampires that are around, like Armand, begin to fear him, not because of like his strength, but his instability and the safety of them, pretty much. They worry Nicky could reveal, the existence of vampires to the human world and just put them at risk. And what Lestat intended as, an act of love becomes another tragedy. Watching Nicky fall apart is heartbreaking because we know how much Lestat genuinely loved him. It's very heartbreaking in the book, trust me. Now, the episode also touches on Lestat's complicated relationship with his mother, Gabrielle. Her presence reminds him of the family ties he never fully escaped and the humanity he continues to lose with every passing year. And meanwhile, in the present timeline, Louis finally catches up to Bruce and the vampire responsible for assaulting Claudia years earlier after, years of just rage and grief. Louis kills him. And instead of feeling justice, the act leaves him hollow and he doesn't feel any better. Bruce is now dead and Claudia is still gone. That realization hits very hard. Revenge cannot undo the past. It cannot erase trauma. It cannot bring back the people we love. It's one of the most powerful moments in this episode. And Louis finally understands that closure isn't something that you can kill your way towards. And by the end of Toronto, we're left with a much deeper understanding of Lestat. And we see that the confident rock star, standing before the world is built on centuries of just trauma. Magnus stole his humanity, and Nicky's descent into the madness left him. And then eventually, Nicky dies. Armand takes his life, and he carries a guilt for that. And his relationships continue to be shaped by abandonment, loss, fear of just being alone. And this episode is less about vampire action. It's more about the emotional scars. It's a tragic story about love, grief, and the consequences of trying to save people who may not want to be saved. And honestly, it's one of the most strongest, like, character focused episodes of the season so far. And I am wondering if in episode 4 we will finally get to see Marius. But this has been another round of Horrorcraft Reviews. Until next time, stay weird and stay spooky. Bye.